welcome to HR Cafe. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know we've kind of played the same message for the last 3 weeks, but we really want to hone in on this new changes for 2020. So as we know, the exemption has changed on the salary for non-exempt versus exempt. If there's an exempt person and you're paying salary, it used to be $23,700. Now it's going on to $35,568. So I want to make sure you guys understand what that is, how it applies, and how you can work around that to stay compliant. So let's just touch on a couple of things. We've been getting questions, so I kind of want to go over some of these questions because if other people have them, you may have them too. So one of the things was, what's the difference between an exempt and a non-exempt employee? So an exempt employee is someone you're paying a salary, a set amount to, but they also have to meet the duties test. So in order for them to meet the duties test, they have to actually be in a professional role. They have to have a learned experience through education, a professional like an HR person, a lawyer, or attorney, things like that. They have to be able to, if it's the administrative exemption, they have to supervise people, have autonomy on their jobs, be able to make those decisions. There's a computer exemption. There's an outside sales exemption. They have to be part of one of these white-collar exemption rules, okay? If they're non-exempt, they're getting paid hourly. So that doesn't really change. This rule doesn't really change that. They'll continue to be paid hourly. They will continue to get their overtime as usual. Nothing changed for them. But if you have an exempt employee, you want to make sure first that they actually meet the test of an exempt employee, and then start kind of playing around with some different scenarios if it makes sense to continue them at their normal rate and just pay them overtime, or if it makes sense to go ahead and raise their rate to the $35,568. So that's some things you really need to try to work on and try to figure that out, okay? Someone asked, if I pay an employee a salary, does that mean that they're exempt? No, not at all. You can pay someone a salary, but they may not fit the exempt classification. So you just need to go ahead and track their time and make sure they're being paid adequately for their overtime anytime worked over 40 hours in that work week, okay? The other question was, what's the difference between what the rate is now and what it will be in 2020 and January 1st. Well, now it's $455 per week. It's moving up to $684 per week. So that's the difference on that. There's also a highly compensated exemption. So people making, right now it's $100,000 until 2020. In 2020, it's going to move up to $107,000, and I think about another $100 over that. So you want to take a look and see if you have those people. You want to make sure you're making the right changes, and also too, you have a little wiggle room with their bonuses and other compensations, commissions, because 10% of that you can kind of use that toward that amount. So you want to take a look at that as well. And what does it mean to be paid on a salary basis? So people sometimes get a little confused about that. So if you have a salary person and they work Monday, but they didn't work the rest of the week for whatever reason, because they're salaried, they worked a portion of that week, they should be compensated for the week because they're salaried. So I just want to make sure you understand what that is. So that's on a salary basis. They pay the regular amount for a certain amount of, whatever work that they're doing. They're paid the same amount on the same time every month. So that's basically what it means to be paid on a salary basis. Someone asked, what's really changing under this new rule? So like we mentioned, it's going from $455 per week for an exempt employee to $684 a week per employee. That's changing. The tests are not changing. Highly compensated is changing from $100,000 to $107,432 on an annual basis. And like I said, 10% of that can be commission or discretionary bonuses. Someone asked about outside sales and computer professionals. Now that is a difference. That's not changing. It's going to stay the same. Some people don't understand what that is, and it's about $27.63 for those type of employees, and they are eligible for overtime. So, you might want to take a look at and not looking at those people. Also, too, people say, you know what, I'm a small employee. That can't possibly pertain to me. Well, No. It pertains really to everybody. So if you look at the FSLA under the Department of Labor and take a look at that, there are some different requirements a person has to meet to fall under those guidelines. And virtually everybody falls under those guidelines. If you make calls outside of the state regularly to something, it could be to pay your credit card bill, it could be for whatever. It automatically puts you in that category. So, a business making over $500,000, if you're not that and you're not making that amount, don't think, oh, it didn't apply to me. If you're calling regularly to invoice someone or pay a bill somewhere in another state and you're making calls outside of Texas or outside of your home state, you are classified under that, and you do have to follow those requirements. So it's for everybody. So I would just advise you to run some scenarios, take a really good look at that, see where you make out, what's the best for you, for your company and your business. It may be that you bring on a part-time person if someone has a lot of overtime, if that makes sense for you. So you might want to reclassify people, but I would say the most important thing to do is track your hours. You got to track your hours. So that's where you'll be able to have some record keeping of your own to make sure that you're following the guidelines and you're in compliance. So that's that on that. So I did want to touch on something that I think is very important, and it's mental health awareness. I know it's something totally different than this, but then again, after going through all this, who knows? But I do want to talk about it from a standpoint that if your employees, if you see something, do something. If someone's looking a certain way that they're not accustomed to looking, or they're acting a different way that they're not accustomed to acting, or they're dressing a different way that's kind of out of the norm, have a conversation with them. Most of our insurance plans now have an EAP, or an employee assistance program. Direct them in that direction. Or if your company has something, direct them in that direction. Or just try to be a listening ear and try to get that person some help. Because sometimes we don't know what people are going through on a daily basis. We have no idea what they deal with when they go home outside of the office. So do what you can. If you see something, say something. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you on next week. And I do want to remind you to go to our website. We are having a Total Wine event where we're going to talk about wine and overtime. So we'll delve a little bit deeper into the conversation, get some feedback from our audience, as well as run some real life scenarios, so you get to see a real life scenario that you can run back at your company, so you can make sure you're making the right decision. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us.